Hi, I'm Conrad Marshall, and from the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age, welcome to Good Weekend Talks, a magazine for your ears featuring in-depth conversations with fascinating people from sport and politics, science and culture, business and beyond. Every week you can download new episodes in which top journalists from across our newsrooms talk to compelling people about the definitive stories of the day. In this episode, we bring you the remarkable story of Miriam, a survivor of forced marriage. Often confused with arranged marriage, forced marriage means one person is not giving their full consent, sometimes due to coercion, deception, incapacitation, or threats. Each year, the Australian Federal Police deal with about 90 cases, although this is thought to represent a fraction of the problem, which was made a crime in Australia in 2013. This week's cover story, This Ends With Me, is about the scourge of forced marriage faced by people such as Miriam. In 2019, in Melbourne's northern suburbs, an artist stumbled upon a group of women, including Miriam, who were about to be married against their will. This artist, who we'll call Beck, helped the young women escape from their family homes, often in the dead of night. In the month before Miriam's escape, she chipped away at the glue her parents had used to seal her window, and finally gained the courage to jump out that window and run away, just 1 week before her planned wedding to a man she did not know. In today's episode, we have changed Miriam's name, omitted some details, and also used AI technology to disguise her voice and protect her identity in this difficult conversation about the long-form story you can read in the pages of our magazine by Good Weekend senior writer Melissa Fyfe.
Thanks, Conrad, and welcome, Miriam.
Thank you.
So let's start at the beginning of your story. You came out to Australia as a young girl.
Yeah.
You were living in Asia and you came out with your parents. Can you tell me a little bit about what they were like and what your childhood was like?
My parents were quite extremist when it came to religion. They were also very restrictive in what we can do, what we can't do, or what we can say, what we can't say in the house. So, for example, when it comes to food, like when it comes to cooking, the father is the man of the house. He needs to eat first before anyone else. And later on, if we wanted to eat, we couldn't sometimes.
Why was that?
It was our way of giving respect to the man of the house, to like that. Like only he can eat what he wants, but for us, we can't always eat. We can only eat when he wants us to eat. And sometimes it's used as punishment as well.
And what was your childhood like? You came out to Australia. Did you go to school?
No. So when I came to Australia, I didn't go to school. I wasn't homeschooled as well. I was just growing up. And then when it came to my puberty, they started putting me into Islamic studies, to memorize the Quran, because that was a very high status in our society. So they wanted that for the family status. So that was it. And I only went to school during BCE, so from grade 10.
Right. And so in the time that you were at home and not in school, you were learning the Quran, which, as you say, you memorized the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that was a very prized skill.
Yeah, very prized skill.
And why do you think your parents decided to encourage you to do that?
Because when a girl hits her puberty, they start getting marriage proposals, marriage prospects, and a lot of them were falling when they came from, they weren't going through with the marriage. So one of the advice I was given was because I wasn't educated. So my parents took it as not educated as in the religious wise. That's why they put me down that path of memorizing the Quran.
And so when the first man was introduced to you, how old were you then?
I was 12.
12. What did you think? What was it, how was it put to you that you were to marry this person?
I was angry and confused, and the man was very old as well. So the feeling I got was very slimy, like a slimy character.
Yeah.
And I was angry as well. And because of that anger, my parents, of course, beat me for it. Because I wasn't supposed to be showing anger. I was supposed to be compliant, but I wasn't. And the more I rebelled against the marriage proposals, the more restrictive they kept me in the home.
Did you understand this to be a normal thing that you were supposed to marry a man or or be engaged, or I guess, to a man when you were so young.
Yeah, for us, it was for us girls and boys, it was a very normal thing to be married as soon as you hit your puberty.
And we're talking there about an Islamic marriage, obviously, because an Australian marriage wouldn't be legal at.
Even Islamically, it's actually not legal to be married underaged. So they're just twisting religious beliefs into cultural goals and perspective, which is not right. Just what they did.
And because you knew the Quran so well, you knew that this wasn't.
That was later on. Like, as I started to go in depth into the Quran, I started to realize that this is not right. Like, everything that we were being taught was not right. That was being implementing on us on our day-to-day life was not right.
Yeah. And sometimes you got to, because when you were learning the Quran, you got to sneak a peek at the English translation, so you sort of could tell also that the things that you were being taught at school didn't quite match up to what your faith was.
Yeah.
And what were the things that you were being taught at school?
For example, women should not have a voice. They should not dream of having a career. They have no self-right. They have no say in anything. That's what we were taught, and that what we were told from our men in the house is what we have to listen to. We were subjected to not even looking after our basic self, not even personal hygiene. That was a big thing, but even that, we had to neglect that. Like, we were taught to neglect our personal hygiene, our self-care, mental wellness, all that.
And what was your education like when you finally got to go to school, which is sort of extremely late, year 10 for most people? What was it like?
Of course, I was so scared, but it was fun because the teachers helped a lot when it came to education, like maths and English. Because of me memorizing the Quran, that helped with my memory and it being able to adapt and catch on to things, to learn things. And also the English translation of the Quran helped with my comprehension with English. So with English, I was good with maths. Oh my God, it was a nightmare. And I couldn't come at home and do homework.
Why not?
My parents would not allow it. They're saying home is just for home chores, no studies, and if you fail in class, that's your problem. And of course, we do get punished for it. So their thing was that we had to finish homework at school, and we couldn't even ask for help when it came to classwork or equations, for example, or poetry, writing, or storytelling.
And what about the school? Did it encourage you to have a career, or was there equal opportunities with the boys and the girls?
So there was no equal opportunity with the boys and girls. The boys and girls were separated from grade 4 in all Islamic schools. The boys get to go, on sports competitions, from inter-school sports competitions, camping, all sorts of adventures for them. Whereas the girls were not like that. We don't even play sports. We don't even do the basics athletics. For some schools they will have jogging in the morning or like a little PE. We don't even have that. Our basic PE was literally just in the gym, so in the building, just doing one lap and that's it. And just being we were tutored on how to play the sports, like for example, soccer, football, volleyball, but we weren't able to play it. We weren't allowed to play it.
So you knew how to play it technically, but you didn't get to play it.
But I believe we were taught how to play it because of the test that we were given. So because it was a compulsory subject then.
Yeah.
So we had, for that, I'm pretty sure they got the scores from there instead of us getting the scores from playing.
Yeah. So you had this first man that was introduced when you were 12, and then how many came after that?
First it was 12, and then one was 15, and the last one was 18, and the final one was right before I escaped.
And they, for whatever reason, kept falling through. What was the consequence of that for you at home?
The consequence, my parents blamed me for the marriage proposals falling through, and the more it fell through, the more they bashed me. And sometimes they bashed, their parents. I have a little brother as well. They used him to keep me in control. Like, if you don't do this, or because of it, this happened. Those threatened to hit him as well. Also, I couldn't have access to even watching TV, going outside. They kept the doors locked at all times. They were always home because their income was through disability scheme. So yeah, and food wise, like sometimes it would be like three days no food, no water.
Yeah. And at that time, what were you thinking about in terms of whether this was normal or how you would normally be treated?
That time, that was the only form of love that I knew. I didn't know love or caring or the value of love, the value of care, the sense of that outside of what I was being given at that time. So I accepted it as it is. I did rebel sometimes, and that did cost extra beatings. But I accepted it as it is. That that my parents say, this is how it is. That this is, for me, my world was very small. That was all I knew.
And the marriage that you ended up escaping from, that was quite imminent, wasn't it? Yes. It was about to happen. So tell me about that. A week away.
That was a week away. So everything was prepared. The wedding. So we have dowry, and our dowry is gold jewelry, like earrings, necklaces. That's given from the men's side, and some given from the bride side as well. Even the wedding dress was prepared, everything. And in all this planning and preparation, they never asked me once what I preferred, which wedding dress would I want, what do I want it to look like, even the jewelry, even the shoes, like nothing. At that point, I was rebelling a lot against that marriage because I believe I was quite old enough, and I was always just rebelling. I had to try to fight it off at least. I still accepted it, but yeah.
And how did you manage to escape that marriage?
My mom, she gave in the middle, she gave me a threat saying that if something happens with this marriage, if it doesn't go through, when you have your own child, we will make that child go to the West. We will take it away, and that's what broke me. I didn't want someone from me to be going to like that. That's when I knew that something's wrong.
You decided that this had to sort of...
Yeah, so I just wanted to break it off. I didn't want this to continue for anyone else. That's why it made me push to escape.
Yeah. And what gave you the idea to escape? How did you do that?
At first, I was thinking that, maybe I could just run off to this, because all I knew was that suburb. I didn't know anything outside the suburb. I've never been on a train. I've never been on a bus, never even been on a taxi. So I was quite working with what I knew. All I knew was the streets that I had outside the house and just walking. So the plan was for now just to get up. And at that time, I was also teaching the Quran. So I wanted a few things for myself. And my parents said that if you want things, you have to earn for it. So while I was teaching the Quran, I earned a bit. And through that earning, I saved a bit of cash to go out and rent at least, like 6 months rent worth. So I was reaching out through my brother's friends. Hey, look, does anyone know a place, this and that, they want to share? And then one of my old friends from school reached out saying, yeah, she's the one who connected me to my understanding former social worker, her friend. And through that, we started connecting to my brother's phone, talking, and then, yeah.
And at the time that this was all happening, your parents had glued your window shut.
Yes, they had glued my window shut. So for a month, I was chipping that away.
You were chipping it away?
Yeah.
Yeah. And did you have to do that obviously when they weren't looking? And
no, that was the easy part. So my room was around the front of the house, and the rest of the house is where they always walk around. So the window was towards the front. So it was quite easy enough to just chip away. For example, I would put on the Qur'ans. So we use, how do you say it? Recordings of the Quran when we want to practice to align our voice with the recording. So I used to pull that up and start chipping off.
Right. That's very clever. And you must have been so scared though to
No, not at that point. When my mom said that really pissed me off. I don't want this to continue on. So that's what I was scared, but I was also determined to just get out.
And tell me about that night that the social worker who we know is an artist came and to pick you up, and she had also helped out some other people as well in the area, and she was waiting outside for you. What was going through your mind when you?
I was so scared because I believe both my parents were in the house then. If I remember, they were in the house and they were asleep, but they're also very light sleepers. And my dad wakes up to pray apparently. But yeah, so I was very scared. I was very nervous, but Beck helped a lot and calmed me down. She talked me through the whole thing. She helped me to breathe, and that helped a lot because that was something very new. The way she treated me then, it was very new, and I loved how it was helping me actually calm down. Like I never felt not calm, but I never felt something that would help me calm down, like, help me feel good. That was the first thing. And that's when I knew I can trust her and I didn't read. Yeah.
Mm. And then you were sort of out in the world. What did you do then?
I was very lost. I believe, so when I was out in the world with Beck, she taught me, she's the first one who taught me scented candles.
Scented candles?
Yeah.
It's a very important life lesson.
It was. It's so nice. And then she bought me a SIM card for a phone. So I got a secret phone through the cash that I had to my brother. She bought me my first SIM card, taught me how to, activate it, how to use the data, how much data I have to renew it, And then she used to cook this amazing salmon. They have this rule in the house to have salmon once a week. But for me, it was, I believe, I was there for 3 days. So I had salmon every day and it was a beautiful meal. Her husband is a chef as well. So it was good. She taught me bathing. She taught me shampoo.
Wow.
She really helped out then.
Yeah, because you hadn't really had a bath much.
No.
And then you found the Lighthouse Foundation.
Yeah.
Tell me about them as an organisation.
Thanks to the carers, they helped a lot. The carers, the way they are, they taught me, they're the reason why. It taught me the value of knowing yourself, having your own right, having your own voice, taking care of yourself, knowing what love actually is, what being cared for is. Like, I understand that maybe they're being paid to be carers, but still, even if they were being paid, like, it was like unconditional love. What we were receiving, like, there were other victims as well. What we were receiving was unconditional love and care, regardless of what we threw at them. The tantrums that we did, the fights that we had.
Really? That's juicy. So this was in the safe house that Lighthouse Foundation has in Melbourne, and basically you were there for how long? Were you there for?
I believe 14 months. 14 months, give or take.
Yeah, and you had to sort of learn a lot, I guess. Like,
I went through the whole childhood. Then.
Oh, your whole childhood.
I had a phase where, so one of the case managers then, I had a phase where I was just in bed. I wouldn't clean my room. I wouldn't do anything.
That sounds like your teenage years.
She had to come. She had to drag me out the bed all the time. Clean your room.
Oh my goodness.
So I went through a whole phase there.
And what other things did you learn when you were there?
I learned music. I never knew I loved music. That's one thing. Music calmed me. I learned how to cook properly for myself, for people that I care about, for people that I love. I learned how to use the train. I learned how to use the bus. I learned what Uber is. I learned Daniel Donuts.
You learned about Daniel Donuts?
Yeah, oh my God. When I first got out, me and the girls, because we were in the same sort of situation, we each had, the boxes, the six boxes.
Yeah.
The boxes that come in 6 donuts.
Mm-hmm.
We had like one every night.
Oh, wow.
One box.
A box every night. Wow.
Yeah.
And what did you do once you'd sort of learned all those stuff? What did you decide that you wanted to do after that?
I decided I wanted to have a life. So literally have a life. So I decided to start looking for a place, which I did. And I moved out, and then I had a stable job, sort of. And after that, I started to do my studies in healthcare. And through the healthcare studies, I got into a healthcare environment.
Yep.
Like hospitals, aged cares, and so and so. So yeah, now I'm financially stable. I've got a place that I love. I've surrounded myself with peace and calm and just myself.
And do you think that one day you might get married, even though you were sort of forced into a married or about to be forced into a marriage? Do you?
Yeah, because now I understand that not all men are like that. Human beings shouldn't be that abusive or inhumane or be treated like that. It's not normal. Now I know that. And I know that there are good people out there. So yeah, I do have hope for that.
Yeah. And what are your other dreams? Like, you said, when we talked before, you said that you're actually living a lot of your dreams at the moment.
I never knew I would wish this, because right now, like, I'm in peace. Like, I have my own place. I have the basic stuff, like furnitures, bookshelves, DIY. I'm making my own DIY, skincare. It's really nice. So yeah, I'm living my dream.
And a lot of Australians don't sort of understand forced marriage. They sometimes get it confused with arranged marriage, which is where, two people might not know each other, but they willingly consent. And forced marriage involves a level of coercion or deception. What would you say to people about forced marriage?
So victims of forced marriages, both male and female, they're put in a position where they have to. They're in a state of fear. They don't know anything outside that fear, that security. They don't have that. Hence the why they go through with it. And yes, we have no consent into the forced marriage. We are abused into that forced marriage. And the community around that whole situation, they're even supporting that forced marriage. Even like they turn a blind side to it. So those victims, they have no choice but to do it because they don't know anything else besides that.
So is there a role we talked about this, that at various points in your experience, people didn't help you. They may have seen you suffering but didn't help. How can people look out for signs of forced marriage? When
a person's very obviously bruising is when you see signs of abuse on the body, like bruises or cuts, constant cuts, or for example, like one of the personal examples was my father when he was making my bank accounts, which I didn't know it was. When I went to the banks in front of my father, they were asking like, I would taking your consent to create a bank account in front of him. So I couldn't say no to that so maybe a bit more awareness, a bit more security, a bit more smarter way of dealing with situations like that, like taking it to another room
and then talking. Yeah. To be able to say away from him, to give an indication that you're in that situation.
Yeah. So having the space to be allowed to give the indication that I'm in trouble and need help.
Yeah. Yeah. And what would you say to anybody that's actually in this situation or about to be like you were in this situation? It takes an enormous amount of bravery to do what you did.
It also takes a lot of strength to stay, like to be in that situation, like, to live and grow up into that environment. It's just focusing that bravery and strength into escape, into this leaving, to knowing, because most people that I've met, like people that are in the similar situations, they're so afraid of change. They're so afraid of they keep going back. Some people go back to the abuse because that's the only thing they know. That's the only form of love they know. They're so scared of anything else beyond that. To have the strength to look beyond that.
I say, when I wrote the piece, I say that, the upside of leaving is this freedom that you have, the freedom that you have to have your flat and to choose how you want it to be, and to just go outside, and to choose a course to study and to choose a job and all of those things. But the downside is that you've left your family. Do you miss your family?
I miss my brother.
Yeah.
Not my parents.
Not your parents, okay. But your brother.
Yeah, I miss him a lot because for some of us victims, we're given everything. We're given the education, we're given the freedom to go wherever we want, to do whatever we want, to study whatever we want. But when it comes to marriage, that's when they force, and they, for example, for my brother, they will give him everything and they'll use that to guilt him into the marriage. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that, like, they'll make him feel like as if he owes them that.
So he's under pressure to make sure that there's honour in the family.
Yes.
It's a situation of honour.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Miriam, thank you so much for coming in today and being brave enough to tell your story again to us today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
That was forced marriage survivor Miriam with Good Weekend senior writer Melissa Fyfe on the latest Good Weekend Talks. If you enjoyed this episode, please remember to subscribe, rate and comment wherever you get your podcasts, and keep tuning in for more compelling conversations. Coming soon, we talk about architecture with Professor Anthony Burke of ABC TV's Grand Designs Transformations. Good Weekend Talks is brought to you by the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age, proud newsrooms powered by subscriptions. To support independent journalism, search Subscribe Sydney Morning Herald or The Age. This episode of Good Weekend Talks is produced by Conrad Marshall and edited by Tim Mummery, with technical assistance from Josh Towers. Tammy Mills is our executive producer, Tom McKendrick is head of audio, and Greg Callahan is the acting editor of Good Weekend.